This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
At Ritual, Mother's Day is kind of a big deal, and we're celebrating accordingly. Find your ritual. If mom needs a bit of stress relief, digestive support, or is looking to support glowy, smooth skin, do it today with 40% off your first month for a limited time at ritual.com/podcast. That's RITUAL.com/podcast for 40% off your first month. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
This is your Anything's Possible Leader Fan Radio Network.
Tweet that.
And KFAN, that's KFAN.com. 2 minutes and 2 seconds past the hour of 3 o'clock. That is Central Daylight Saving Time. Bumper Bumper Show is live, local, and it is on the air right now as we speak. Gaardsy produces the show. My name is Dan Barreiro, former Inkster and Wretch newspaper of the Twin Cities. We're delighted you're along for the ride. Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line rebooted. If you'd like to reach us at 64686. I'm assuming some of you, perhaps, if you live in the far western or northern suburbs, are already on their way to, you're on your way to Target Center. Now, it's a late start tonight. But don't forget, and this should really affect traffic, the Twins have a home game tonight. So keep that in mind.
You tell us. And Royce Lewis is coming back.
I saw that. So on a lot of the morning local shows,
God bless TV. Yep.
They're doing, because out of habit, it's, don't forget now.
They get the news release.
You got the Twins tonight downtown Minneapolis. You've got the Wolves tonight downtown Minneapolis. Maybe some concerts. I don't know. Maybe I'll be gobsmacked and we'll find out that tonight the walk-up for the Twins will be huge. But I don't think that should have a major impact on your ability to get into downtown Minneapolis. We're going to get to a lot about the ball game, but I mentioned it's the famous, was it just a few minutes after the Boston Celtics starring their big three, right? It was Kevin Garnett.
Yep.
It was Paul Pierce, the truth.
Yep.
And it was Ray Allen, right?
It was.
That was their big three. They went, in fact, I believe from the season before, they had the greatest single season improvement in regular season record in the history of the National Basketball Association. I don't think it's ever been matched. Or if it has, very rarely. And then they won the title, right? And I don't know if it was which interview it was, but that's when KG screamed out to the rafters, anything's possible.
It
correct?
was with Tafoya, I think.
Was it with Lima?
I think it was on the court. It was basically the courtside sideline interview.
Yeah. It was.
Had the hat, had the shirt, had it all.
It was joyful. No, it was joyous. He was joyful. I don't know how that, there's a difference between joyous and joyful, how you're going to use them or supposed to use them. But I know we have a couple of good linguists who will check in via the Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line 64686. And quite frankly, it's on my mind today. Not reminiscing about the KG title that we all wished he could have won here, but didn't. But more for the current conditions in the National Basketball Association playoffs. Because if you want to believe the mantra, anything's possible. And who doesn't? Especially if you are not one of the teams that started the postseason as big to prohibitive favorites to at the least get to the NBA Finals and then perhaps even win it. You want to believe anything's possible, correct? Well, that means you were celebrating what took place in the playoffs last night. Now, fan has learned it's not best of one in the NBA. It's best of 7 in the NBA. That's why it's a cut above the big dance. You have to prove that what you have done, the Knicks have to prove, if they're going to advance, that what they've done wasn't fluky. They have to do it 3 more times, 4 total. It's best of 7, right? So you have to win 4.
Still is.
And the same for the Denver Nuggets. 2 years removed from a world championship, they were upstart winners in Okie City Game 1 against the prohibitive favorites out of the Western Conference, according to many, the Okie City Thunder. They, too, have to win 3 more for it to be real. So I understand that neither team won a title last night, although the stat does interest me that I think in NBA playoff history, the team that wins Game 1 wins the series 75% of the time, which means 3 out of 4, right? That's not prohibitive, but it's helpful. And it certainly seemed to open up all the possibilities that this particular NBA playoff run might have more surprises in store. That the assumption many had that the Celtics were going to return to at least the NBA Finals by winning the Eastern Conference again, and that Okie City was finally ready on the basis of what's been just an unbelievable regular season, especially when you factor in how good the Western Conference is, that, chances are it's going to be those 2 teams. They have home ice. They've been unbelievably good. They have their own identities, and they played to those identities, very different ones, quite effectively. Well, obviously, Wolves fans want to think different. They want to hope different. Now, the Wolves are not in an underdog position in this series, but I would still think that many people would view them as unlikely to make it all the way to the NBA Finals. So now, anything seems possible after what took place last night. We were reminded, for example, of just how otherworldly the Joker is. I don't even know how to begin to do. We've talked about this before. I think in some ways he's almost taken for granted because we're so used to his numbers. And I'm not even necessarily talking about the numbers, which are ridiculous. I think for me, it's just more for most people, eye test, watching him control the game, manipulate the game, coach the game on the court, and now, by the way, in the huddles.
Now he's animated Joker.
Extremely animated.
Which is a new Joker.
That is a new Joker. Regardless, he was ridiculous. Oklahoma City, and again, last night, the favorites both seemed to have things under control. Oklahoma City was cruising along. Celtics were cruising along until both teams were not. And Denver counterpunched and hung in and made a couple of plays. And before you know it, they're stealing Game 1 in Oklahoma City and making, as they're doing it, the Thunder, I think, look a little more mortal, especially on the boards. They got clobbered on the boards than most people associate with that franchise. And in the case of Tom Thibodeau's New York Knicks, they had lost all four regular season games to the Celtics by an average margin of 16.3 points. They hadn't even been close except in one of the games. And it looked like the same thing was happening. But they hung in. They plugged along. The Celtics decided to go to hell with the joke, which is we're the greatest. We won a title shooting threes last year.
Yep.
We're going to win another title, and we're going to do it the exact same way. And they stubbornly did basically what the Wolves did against the Lakers. And maybe they thought, well, the Wolves did it and kept shooting, and they got away with it, and they won the game. We'll do the same, except it didn't work out the same way because your guy, Jalen Brunson, made a number of key shots, but also a couple other Knicks did.
Bridges for sure.
OG. We'll get to Cat in a minute. But bottom line is now you have at least the possibility of the chalk being wrong, and that maybe this is a year where anybody that gets hot at the right time and makes the right kind of run and has the right kind of matchups can make a run. And I assume we would be cocky if Denver can complete the upset and knock off Okie City.
Yeah.
We assume we're very haughty about Denver, right? They can't beat us.
I know, this is the new Denver,
regular season.
Feels like a new Denver.
I agree with you. I think it'd be a little fool's gold to assume that, but I'm sure we would feel more confident playing Denver because of our history than we would Oklahoma City, although I think Denver also would have home court in either of those series.
Yep, they're the 4 seed.
I'm going down on my chair again here. There we go.
It's a humbling chair.
It's a humbling chair. It really is. So that's, to me, the theme, which is, I would think, quite promising for excited, I optimistic Wolves fans is, for the moment, after last night's results in the NBA playoffs, anything suddenly does seem possible.
But the inverse is true, or the reverse is true. It was all three road teams that won the Game 1 series, right?
That's true.
Including Denver, who came off, remember that big stat that I quoted yesterday from Brian Windhorst?
Yes.
That it's almost impossible for a team coming off a Game 7 traveling for the next Game 1?
Yeah, you basically said it was a schedule loss for both of those teams, and that it will be tonight for Golden State.
And watching Windy this morning, he owned up to it. He said, well, I don't feel as good as I did yesterday after my stat basically got blown out of the water, but anything is possible on the reverse side, too. The Warriors can come in here tonight and try to shock the world, even though nobody's really given them a great chance to do that. Analytically,
the Warriors could absolutely use it to their own psychological advantage.
They're not scared of anybody.
I think we could, to the extent that even though we're favored in this series, most people, when at least the playoffs began, did not have us,
correct,
including the odds makers, close to the top of the list as a team that was going to make it to the NBA Finals. Let's face it, the run, the playoffs are always more interesting when these sorts of upsets happen, when these doors seem to be open. Now, again, Boston could win the next 4. I wouldn't be shocked if they did, actually.
Right.
One game is only one game, but no one was expecting either outcome, especially when you factor in the degree to which the favored teams were dominating both of those games, the Celtics in Boston and Okie City in Oklahoma City, one of your favorite towns.
The Fan and BigDeck.com want to give you a shot to win bonus bucks. It is our national cash contest. First keyword of the afternoon is bank. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword bank.
Oh.
Game 1 of round 2 tips off tonight. What better way to watch it than with Carboni's Pizza? You can visit one of their 30-plus locations to enjoy delicious pizza and get ready for the Minnesota playoff run. Find your nearest Carboni's today at carbonispizza.com.
I don't think this can be right. This year's Pistons team went from 14 wins to 42, which is now the best improvement. That's 28 games, right? A 28-game improvement? 42 minus 14? Isn't that 28?
I'm going with that, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. So in 2006-07 season, the Celtics finished 24 and 58. The next season, as they brought the big three together, they went 66 and 16. Now, isn't that 66 minus 24? Isn't that a 42-game improvement?
It is.
That would be bigger, I think, than a 28-game improvement, unless we've got a new math that doesn't take something else into consideration. That's an astonishing one-season turnaround, is it not?
Because they did the MV3 bit.
They did a better version of the MV3 bit than we did.
Yep.
Although it evaporated there, too. That Celtics documentary lays out how ugly and bad it got eventually, but they did get their title.
They got another finals out of it, I think, right?
They did.
Yeah.
They lost the Lakers. This is from CJ in Minneapolis. My favorite part about KG's proclamation is that he flubbed the actual Adidas tagline of "Impossible is nothing." That's who he was sponsored by at the time. And that's true. I remember that now. It was supposed to be "Impossible is nothing." And instead he went, "Nothing's impossible."
No, anything is possible.
Anything's possible, I should say. Yeah, anything's possible.
I'll say this. I like his version better.
Well, "Impossible is nothing," when you read it,
yes,
sounds good.
Definitely.
As a declaration, it doesn't really come off all that well. It doesn't trip off the tongue
it's not as easy as row the boat.
As row the boat. That's for,
or anything is possible.
That's 100% true. Here's the guest lineup for today. Louis, 5:30. That will be your hockey fix today. Former KFAN alum Sam Gordon, who now covers the Golden State Warriors for the San Francisco Examiner, correct?
Chronicle.
I'm sorry. Yeah, yep. Well, see, that's how old I am. I remember when there were two papers. The Chronicle. In fact, I think his colleague is the old outstanding LA Times columnist, sports columnist Scott Osler. He's going to join us at 4:30. Is he? I assume he's got to be in town. That game's tonight. I was thinking.
I'm looking at a video from Target Center that he posted earlier today.
Even better.
From Warriors shoot-around.
So we'll get a good Jags scouting report there as well. So there's two things that struck me from yesterday to follow up on the anything's possible theme, which I think a lot of people drew from two outstanding games, by the way, as it turns out. It looked like they were going to be both kind of blah first, almost what you'd expect, home team, heavily favored, taking care of business at home. And then ultimately, the road team, in different ways, came back nicely and effectively stole game one. In the case of the Celtics, it's that old conundrum about, well, you can be mad at us all you want about our stubbornness in shooting threes, because I think like 3 times now in the last 10 days, the all-time record for missed threes has been shattered. Yeah. And this is the 3rd time by the Celtics. And you could say, well, that's how we won the title a year ago. We like those shots. We hit a greater percentage of those shots. We're not going to keep missing those shots. So, yeah, okay, you got us tonight, but that's not going to change the way we've played, because that way has led us to an NBA title a year ago and an outstanding record again this year. Not the best record in the East this year. I guess that was Cleveland. Or you could say, well, that's all true, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're obligated to go to hell with the joke. You know, that you are allowed occasionally to say, well, we got a couple of pretty good slashers in getting to the basket, don't we? I mean, we got at least 2. You could say maybe 3 guys who can get to the hole. And maybe we try that every once in a while, just to sort of mix it up, put a little bit more pressure on their defense. I lean that way. Like I said, the Wolves live to tell about their horrendous stubbornness about putting up threes against the Lakers, but I still don't know that I would necessarily recommend that particular approach. So, again, can you say they played outside of their style? No, but I mean, the stat again I saw, and this happened in one of the Wolves games too, as I recall it, that Laker game. The Celtics, I think in the second quarter, on 2-point shots were 12 for 16.
Right.
So then you go, well, don't the analytics have to factor that in? We know 3 points is more than 2. But if you're shooting 12% on threes and 75% on twos, then you're going to end up with a higher score with the twos than you are the threes if you sustain those 2 percentages, right? Even though you get an extra point for every 3-pointer that you make.
The problem, yes, 100% right. And there does have to be, just read the game a little bit.
Yes.
Where they were just chucking them up. But the issue was, if you want to believe this analytic, let's just do round numbers. Of the 43s that they missed, it was something like 30 that were wide open. That was the other Wolves thing, right? It's that old fine line of, well, they're wide open shots.
Right.
And these guys are good shooters. At some point, you think one of them's going to go in.
We're not turning down open shots. Right.
Because the whole point of the game is to get really open shots. The ones that bothered me were, I think Tatum was the biggest culprit of a lot of the step backs, like where he didn't even really seem to try to go to the rim very often. And he's the guy that probably should try to be the stabilizer that says, all right, guys, we've been slinging threes for 9 minutes here. I'm going to try to at least get something going downhill, because
get a free throw.
Whether you believe in momentum or not, missed shots do, I think, compound on each other. I do think it becomes a mental thing for teams. Well, again, I got to make this one. We've missed the last 10.
But I would especially say, because the Wolves had a similar stat, I want to say it was the second quarter, maybe it was the third quarter of that Laker game, where they were almost not missing from 2. And you say, well, then at that point, maybe we got some mid-range stuff we should continue to exploit that they're not handling very well. We'll continue there. The interesting nugget from the Okie City game was Okie City went with the old, we're up 3, we're going to keep fouling you while we're up 3. And we think in the end, we do not want to give you the chance to shoot a 3-pointer that will tie the game or tie the, either at the end of the game or even in the last minute of the game. I'm very agnostic on that debate. I just don't have. I can be convinced either way. I don't think you're an idiot. I don't think a coach is an idiot if they don't foul. I don't think they're an idiot if they do. A lot of times we make the decision on what we like on the basis of outcome, right? Like, because last night, if our guy Holmgren hits one at least or both of the free throws, that game's completely different, right? That's what you can't account for, is that somebody's going to, sometimes people miss free throws. But here's the interesting nugget. To sustain, for Okie City to sustain their philosophy of, we're fouling you. Up 3, we're fouling you.
Yep.
That allowed Denver to put Joker back in the game. Joker's on the sidelines. He had, I think, 5 fouls. I think it may have been offense, defense, but they were out of timeouts. So I got to be honest with you. In that situation, I'd be mighty tempted to make Denver do whatever they're going to do without Joker on the floor. Now, I'm aware they've got, Murray can hit a shot, and he can go one-on-one with anybody. They got a couple other people who can score, and Westbrook, he might brick it, he might airball it, or he might hit a 3 from the rafters. You never know with him.
Yep.
But I think it's an interesting basketball discussion to have. If you go, well, we want to stick to our philosophy, but that's the only way they can get Joker back on the court for the end of the game. I would be very tempted, given how important he is to everything they do, to say, no, we're not going to abide by our strategy, which is we always foul in that situation with a 3-point lead.
In a weird way, it was overthinking it of fouling on the 3 or before the 3 as early as they did, and then it was not thinking about it enough to the Joker point. What bothered me about it was on both occasions, they fouled so quickly.
One of them was literally 1 second in. And what's the point of that?
Why are you fouling Gordon in the backcourt?
Yeah.
Let him take a couple of dribbles, shrink the game a little bit, because the other fatal flaw, if you foul up 3, you have to make your free throws. You want the game short.
Correct.
You want the seconds to tick off. You don't want a team to have what they had. They ended up having like 12 seconds or 11 seconds to get the rebound, come up, get it to Westbrook, who made the right play, which was awesome, and Gordon hits the shot. I get it's their philosophy, and we do what we do, but it made no sense to foul a guy 90 feet from the basket. Let him take a couple of dribbles.
Because the key is not the dribbles. The key is seconds tick off the clock.
Totally.
That's the point. Yeah,
totally.
And I think what happens is, I think sometimes players, they have it put in their head, foul. And make sure you foul where they're not trying a shot where it could turn into 3 free throws.
The Joker one was close, by the way.
It was.
Yeah.
They get so paranoid about that, I think, that's like, I'll foul right away. But fouling right away should be, at the very least, waiting for them to get to the front court, as you say, or at least closer to the front court, because I think the first one was literally like 1.1 seconds in.
Yes.
And that sort of defeats, it's almost like, why take away the chip that easily? Use that chip better than squandering in the backcourt when there's no chance that it's going to be a shooting foul. And even if it's a little more dangerous as you get closer to the front court or in the front court, that part didn't make sense. But I don't care what the situation is. I like Denver a lot better whenever they're trying to score and Joker's not on the court. I don't know what the odds are on that analytically, but I like my chances better. That's for sure.
Did you see the Westbrook comments after Game 7? That have gotten a little bit of attention?
No.
You mentioned there's a million things that he could do.
Yes.
Some good, some bad. He essentially said that as well. And I'll find it maybe for the top 5. And just said, yeah, I can make a shot, miss a shot, turn it over, make a great play. Because I think somebody asked him, because he got on that heater in Game 7. He's been great for them, by the way.
I know.
I love
crazy.
Russell. Because I know he gets criticized so often because he is an insane player at times. And they kind of asked him, what are you thinking about? And he says, well, I'm not... He goes, believe it or not. Thinking. No, but he did say, he goes, believe it or not, I am fairly cerebral. It just doesn't always look like that at times. Anything could happen, basically. He just he perfectly encapsulated the Russell Westbrook experience himself, all acknowledging, and I don't know what's going to happen, but the next thing, we got to move on to the next play, whatever it is.
Anything is possible with Westbrook
possible
on any given play. Well, to his credit, by the way, he delivered a perfect pass to Gordon on the wing.
Made a great play.
It's a great play. And again, if you're playing the odds there, he's got 3 choices, right? He's got drive all the way to the basket on his own.
We've seen that.
Pull up and take the shot himself.
We've seen that.
Or pass. And he made absolutely the right read. And it was a good throw that allowed Gordon to just kind of move into the shot, right? It was perfectly played. That was a hell of a finish. And it is a not so gentle reminder that Denver's got some weapons, man. And I guess it's got to be a great feeling for the head coach, Alleman. We were talking yesterday about, there have been, what kind of advantage, how big was the advantage that Finchie had over Redick? I think ultimately it was big. I think Finchie utterly and completely outcoached Redick. And, the comeback was, there's some coaches without experience who've had some success. And that's also true. But I look at Adelman different. Even though Adelman has not been a head coach, I look at him differently than I do Reddick because he's been coaching forever, right? As I'm sure video guy for a while. I'm sure, taking out the trash for a while. He's been all through that. He's been a valued assistant coach for quite some time. So even though he hasn't been a head coach, which is a different role, I feel like he's been coaching.
He's been in the game.
In the way that Reddick hasn't been, other than blogging, right? Or analyzing it on ESPN.
He's been a part of game plans. He's been a part of scouting. He's been a part of adjustments.
Correct. Not
just reading the scouting report like Reddick did for all those years as a player in a much different role. He's been part of those situations.
We have a done-as item to get to. I'm not sure if it's real or not, but it's almost too tempting to ignore. We'll get to that. We'll get to some texts as well. As I mentioned, Louis on hockey at 5:30, and Sam Gordon is going to join with a Golden State Warriors scouting report about 4:30. Game 1 can, of course, be heard right here on the Fan. Game 2, we will be at the Cage Target Center, so we will not be there tonight, but we will be there for Game 2 with a cavalcade of outstanding guests. More to come on that. Guests scheduled for 4:30 and 5:30, so we're kind of wide open until then. We'll continue to peruse the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. Number is 64686. I don't know. I think this number is accurate. If Butler plays tonight, which we assume he will, Jimmy Butler, it will be the first time in 1,259 days.
Excuse me?
Since he last played a game at Target Center. I'm not going to do the math on it, but that's what Horton went with, Alan Horton. November 24, 2021 is the date he put down as the last time that Butler played.
That sounds right.
That was as a member of the Miami Heat, correct?
It was coming off the finals bubble, I would imagine.
Correct. November 20. That's a long time. 1,259 days. Now, do Wolves game operation people have the kind of snark and chutzpah to put that number up on the board? You know, the big boards you got, the big screens you got all over Target Center, the expensive new scoreboard we have, to rather snarkily point out, welcome back, Jimmy Butler. 1,259 days since you last played or were last willing to play at Target Center. Do we have that kind of snark in us?
Do we want him to have the snark? Do we want to poke the bear? Do we want to give him the power?
I do, but I don't have to live with the consequences because the game is going to be real simple. If the Wolves dominate the game, it won't come up again.
Exactly.
If the Wolves lose and Butler goes for 36, including the last 10 points for Golden State, it'll be,
out of bounds.
That's what did it. No question about it. And the Jackals will grab onto it, and they'll feed the bear. They'll say, Jimmy, did you notice that? What kind of impact did that have on you? You're a proud player. Did you notice that? And they'll want him to say, that changed everything for me.
Yeah.
I was going to have an ordinary game until then.
Right.
Whether it's true or not, everybody will go for the angle.
What's the injury he's dealing with? The backbone, the whatever bone contusion that he's been dealing with?
Right. Tailbone.
It was really hurting me.
Until then.
And then I saw that video, and it was like a cortisone shot up my spine. Yeah, I want to leave Jimmy alone. I don't want to poke Jimmy. Leave Jimmy alone. Got to kind of leave Draymond alone, too, but we're not going to do it. I know we're not going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, so you won't either. You'll boo him. You'll be all over him.
We'll see.
Not sure?
We'll see how I handle tonight. I'm not sure. haven't decided yet. On Sunday for Game 4, I didn't have me yelling at Rob Pelinka either, but I ended up doing that.
Well, that's it. So. That's what I'm saying. I don't trust you at this point.
I know. I don't trust myself. I am. I know.
Completely invested.
It's my team since I was 7. I know.
Are you a great roundabout mind?
Can anyone claim to be that grew up in the United States?
No.
We're all kind of learning on the fly, I think.
Yeah, and we've got more and more of them in the Twin Cities,
we
right?
We do, absolutely.
All the time. It seems like there's another roundabout
everywhere.
That's either being constructed or is already done, whatever the case may be.
Yep, I think I'm an okay roundabout mind. I don't think I'm a roundabout liability.
This is unscientific. There are no analytics to back this up. This is eye test. I actually think the longer we have roundabouts, the stupider most of our drivers are becoming in attempting to navigate them. I'm sensing more and more that for a lot of people, a lot of the citizenry that drives, there's an uncanny difficulty understanding what the bleeping yield sign means and how it applies. You know what I'm saying? It's like that's the key to the roundabout is understanding that you are obligated by law to yield to traffic that is headed that is already in. What is it? I guess you could say this is the circle,
the roundabout,
the roundabout, whatever it is.
Yep.
Why is that such a difficult concept for people to understand? You don't have the right of way, and you can't do the. I'm just going to go. Watch out for me. Watch out. I'm going. More and more people seem utterly flummoxed by this thing, and I can't for the life. Now, I'll admit it takes some getting used to. You got, in some cases, I think people feel the heat of the car behind them.
Totally thing.
Right?
Totally a thing.
If they jab the horn a little bit, or they all, I better go because this guy's going to be mad at me.
Yep. If they just pause a little bit too much, they're going to hear it.
You have, now, again, you shouldn't, if there's no traffic around to your left, then you shouldn't stop as you approach the roundabout because there are people who do that too. I'm going to stop. No, there's no stop sign. The whole point of the roundabout in terms of the flow is it's supposed to try to keep things moving as cleanly as possible. I think we're getting worse at it. Or we just have more people who don't care. So I'm just going to go. Now, here's a roundabout insider question. Maybe it's too far in the weeds, but I need clarification on it. If you're in the roundabout and you are circling around and now you're going to be coming to the left and you're about to want to take the first exit to the right that you can onto a street. And there are two lanes in the roundabout. Mm-hmm. There's the lane you're in, the inner lane, so to speak, and the outer lane. I've seen people not yield in part because they think, well, there's two lanes here. So I'm just staying in the right lane. You have to stay, even if you're in the roundabout, to the left lane. And I say, no, I have to turn. That's my turn, idiot. If you deprive me my chance to turn, then that's on you, which is why, as I understand it, that person has to yield whether there's someone on the inside lane or the outside lane if they are in the circle already approaching them. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're right.
It has to be that way because otherwise I miss the turn. If I can't get over from my lane across to the right lane immediately to make the turn, then I am missing my turn. That cannot be a roundabout that is useful or is working properly.
So my follow-up question would be, why wouldn't you be in the outer lane if you were eventually going to go right? Do you see the confusion? If you were in the inner lane.
Because the way this is set up, this particular one is the right lane, you're supposed to keep going, how do I say it? You don't keep going in the circle. You're exiting the circle and going straight
before you even get to the other car.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You don't. There's not a way around that. In this particular one. Yeah. There's not that opportunity.
Then they absolutely need to yield to make sure you cross their face.
That shouldn't be that difficult. But regardless, I think we have a yield problem. I think there's still this basic misunderstanding. I'm just going to go. Either it's the two extremes. Either I'm going to stop like there's a stop sign. Or I'm just going to go. Yeah, he's kind of near me, but he can wait. No, that defeats the purpose of the yield. To keep the proper flow in the roundabout, it's all about, you just have to accept this. The people who are already in the roundabout rule. It's their game. You have to, because you're going to be on the other side of it sometimes. You're going to get your turn. When you're going to be in another roundabout, and you're going to go, I'm already in the roundabout. They got to wait for me now. You can't be resentful of the fact that you got to wait for the people already in the roundabout. There's too much resentment there. I don't understand why.
Too much built up. Yeah, but they got there earlier. They got to the right side, and there was no traffic, so they got to enter the little Ferris wheel or the little carousel to get on there first. It has been interesting because if you go out east, they have them all over the place, obviously, and it does seem like it all works out beautifully. Everybody kind of understands it. And even I, as a Midwest driver, felt more comfortable getting into the roundabout much busier on the East Coast city than I do here on like Highway 7.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, what am I doing here?
Right.
Not a lot of cars. I don't know. Do they know? There's a bunch by Ridgedale.
So you think it's actually harder with fewer cars, in a way? Is that what you're saying?
I think people overthink it.
They might.
Yeah,
they might have. Yeah.
I think we overthink it a little bit.
Just go.
Yep.
But but the idea of the roundabout isn't to just go.
No.
That's the other thing. You can't think of it that way. We've talked about this for years. The number of people who don't know how to merge onto a highway, right? That they don't understand. They either go too slow or they go too fast. And they don't do a good job of sort of measuring, okay, I got a car coming to my left. I think he's actually going to want to go behind me because he's going to want to take the exit to the right. And, it's just sort of a feel you get, hopefully. So it's another version of that. But now that we have more and more roundabouts, I'm trying to figure out if we all need to go back to roundabout school to have some kind of tutorial, or is it just people don't care? They say once upon a time, there was, you go back decades, the National Safety Council used to have TV ads about driving defensive, about being, you got to be sure. And the mantra basically was, watch out for the other guy, to sort of emphasize that point. And I had a couple friends who at the time said, too bad, I am the other guy. Like, I'm not going to watch out for the other. You have to watch out for me.
Right.
Which is, again, I think, sadly, the way a lot of people look at it. It's your problem. I may be doing it wrong, but I'm going, so you're just going to have to adjust to me.
I had that situation, not in a roundabout, but just in a flashing yellow turn issue last night.
Correct.
With my son in the car, where it absolutely was not. I'm turning right.
Correct.
These people are turning left. We have the green light. They have the blinking arrow. And all three cars just went as I'm about to turn right with the green light. And I just had to sit there. And I said to my son, sometimes you just have to eat it.
You do
because
have to.
People are completely clueless. Because I muttered something or I said something. He said, what happened? I go, well, people are idiots. Number one. That's life lesson number one. I said, all three of those cars were incorrect. He goes, well, why didn't you go? I said, because we would have been in an accident.
That's it. You got to take the L.
You have to look around.
You don't want to die.
Because I'd rather not have you fly out of the car here.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you just have to deal with the fact that other people are stupid, and thankfully you're paying attention.
I think the percentages are going up. I don't know why that is, but I do. I think, and maybe this is another post-COVID thing, where people got used to being able to drive more recklessly. Sometimes that meant faster, but sometimes it just meant more recklessly because there were fewer cars around. And they've never readjusted to the fact that, well, no, we're
people are out.
But they're back. They're out in various situations. I saw the other day a deal where it's the old, all right, I'm going to, in a yield situation, not just a regular merge situation, but a yield merge, the car in front of me decided, even though if that person had looked to their left, they'd see there was a car going 55 miles per hour in the right-hand lane. And that if they tried to merge at that time, there was going to be a problem. Now, in this case, the driver going 55 noticed the slowpoke that was forcefully going to merge regardless into the lane and basically drive into the lane he's on already. And so what did that driver do? He went over quickly to the left-hand lane to avoid that individual. But what did that individual do like a minute later? Moseyed on into the left lane of the two lanes. So it wasn't enough that you already blew it once.
That's what I'm done.
And the other person avoided you by taking the invasive action. I'm going to make them pay again because I'm actually going to go 15 miles per hour under the limit in the left lane, forcing him to slow down again or to go back into the right lane to avoid an accident.
So think of how aggravated you are about that, how aggravated I was last night. Do you know how #blessed we are?
To tell about it, you mean?
To tell about it, number one.
Yeah.
But to not have to drive right now?
Yeah, that's true.
The people that are listening to the show right now that are dealing with multiple idiots.
Later.
That's what I mean.
You mean like you're talking about in at rush hour.
Drive time, in rush hour.
We do have that advantage.
The fact that we think about the problems that are going on right now that we never even have to think about because we are here working. And I remember having that very distinct feeling driving in rush hour one day on an off day, on a rare off day for me, where I thought we are so lucky to not have to deal with this every single day.
There's no question about that. We're spoiled about that.
We have to give our audience something.
There's no question.
To get them through this nightmare.
Yeah, that's all we can do, I guess.
Change my perspective.
I need some help from some great roundabout minds. In general, I've been convinced, when I think we talked about this years ago when more and more of them were coming in, and I said, what are we doing? I was in the group that wasn't convinced that other than doing what we feel obligated from a politically correct standpoint to do, that this really was going to be very helpful or useful when it comes to traffic. I've come to believe that there is some usefulness to them, but now I'm going back the other way because I have so little faith in my fellow man and the ability to understand how to work them, how to use them, and how to proceed on them, and that your two options can't just be stop or to go regardless of the traffic that's already in the circle.
I mean, we can't even figure out the right-of-way at a four-way stop most of the time here in Minnesota.
That's true, too, yeah.
And we went to driving school for that.
Yeah.
Like, none of us, unless you're getting your license now, which nowadays kids don't even want to get their license. Can't say I blame them. I mean, Max doesn't even have his license, right? He just rides his bike all over the place. Or gets rides. We never learned it. So I think that's part of it, too. Like, we never had Scott Lujan's SE School of Driving telling us exactly how to enter the roundabout, when to do it, how to do it, what not to do, all of those things. The stuff we learned, we still can't even get 100% right, that we actually were educated on. Now imagine just plopping down a bunch of roundabouts here after 50 years of driving for some people.
There's
a learning curve.
I'll tell you another one that I've run into from time to time that, there are sometimes what they call three-way stops, where if you're coming from three of the four directions, there's a stop. You're supposed to stop. And there's often a sign indicating that the other lane does not stop.
Correct.
And it tries to warn people to say, now don't assume it's a four-way stop. It's a three-way stop. And the other lane that you have to pay attention to, they're allowed to proceed. They don't have to stop. But again, either people don't want to read a sign, they get impatient. It's my turn. I got to go. And they don't. It doesn't even seem to have any impact on them. I don't even think. Are we testing people like for rules? I don't even think we test people the same way that we used to, don't we? Because I don't even think we have the bureaucracy to do the testing when it comes to making sure. Because you never really have to take another driver's test, not written. I'm talking about, but like driver's test. Once you have a driver's license, correct?
Nope.
Ever.
You just got to get your vision checked.
And I'm not saying I'd want one because I'd probably fail. I'm not even sure. But because I still can't parallel park. To this day, I cannot parallel.
I refuse to do it. No, I'm not. No, I'm not at all.
Yeah.
I can do it in an emergency, and every once in a while, there's a heat check where I pull it off, like first try, where I'm in awe of myself.
When you don't even know how you did it.
No,
but you do it.
I couldn't tell you. Yeah. I remember the basics kind of how to do it, but I am atrocious at it and just don't like doing it. So I try to avoid it at all costs.
I know this is a very controversial issue, and it's not a road we go down very often. What does this mean? Effective July 1st, lane splitting will be allowed per law. MnDOT has good information about it. What does lane splitting mean?
Lane splitting has to do with motorcycles.
Okay.
Where motorcycles can go through some traffic depending on the speed. There's lane splitting, and there's another phrase where you can go through, and they both have to do with motorcycles being able to just cut through the cars. So that will be legal, provided, and there's some rules in terms of speed limits and things like that, what you can do, what you can't do if you're the motorcycle. But that's what that's about.
Man, that sounds like trouble to me. But
I would say yes.
Yeah. You're getting ripped. This happened to Gaardsy because Gaardsy let those other drives turn on him. The only thing that happens to you on the road are things that you let happen. You can be defensive, but sometimes you have to be offensive and defensive. Don't let people push you around. Another good lesson for your son. So in effect, what he's saying is man up.
Yeah.
Better that your kid gets thrown out of the car because you stood tall for the position you had where you should have had the right of way. That's how you build trust in your kid. That's how you teach your kid about how to man up and become a man. Just so you know. You didn't think of it that way, did you?
Well, I'll say this. I'll be honest. I was worried about my son. I thought it was a good life lesson. I was also concerned with having to call Charlie Swanson and tell him the Lexus RX 350 that I've been driving for the last few weeks has been in an accident.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good.
I didn't want to have to do that, especially with Kragers coming to town right before game 1. I didn't want to have to do that.
That wouldn't be good at all, I would think. That's true. Top of the hour pause. Don't forget, we'll get a Golden State Warriors scouting report from our guy Sam Gordon at 4:30. Louis on the Stanley Cup playoffs. Yeah, they're still playing it. The Wild are out, but they're still playing. Other teams are still participating, and a lot more to get to before we wrap things up at 6.